Hey YouTube, Kiratwig here, bringing you all an update to my Yu-Gi-Oh! Deck collection for 2021. I always like to do a Yu-Gi-Oh! Deck collection update every year. Normally around the middle of the year, I kind of let it slip past me this time around, but this is my 8th deck collection video on the channel, which I'm very, very happy to show. I always have some pretty big changes with every video. Either I trade away a deck, I just get tired of playing it, and I disassemble it, I get new decks from sets that came out, and the majority of the decks normally stay, constructed together. I never really take them apart unless I need to use cards from the majority of the deck for another one. But like I said, we got a good amount to go through. I'll give just a little summary of how I obtained the deck, what it means to me, and a lot of them have been with me since, I began starting playing Yu-Gi-Oh! Again back in 2011. So let's go ahead and get started. I think we'll start off with the closest one to me, and I'm just going to be putting them to the other side. First one is Morphtronics. I really do love this deck. It has a playstyle, and some of them are organized, some of them are still kind of mixed up because I just recently used them. I've used Morphtronics for the longest time. My favorite, form of the deck is the Synchro variant, in which you can summon out your main go-to boss monster. Yes, you can get out Power Tool Dragon and Lifestream Dragon, which both help with getting out the different equip spells you use for the plays, but the main play is to get out Shooting Quasar Dragon to use with Shooting Star Dragon. It's just a really, really fun play that I enjoy, and all the different Synchro monsters that you can summon out in the deck, and the addition of Link monsters just helps all together. And being able to use Selfon over and over again with this deck is really the best playstyle, relying on the luck of the die roll, and then just coming down to what Morphtronics you reveal. Really takes me back to the 5Ds series I would always watch. This was around the time when I was getting back into Yu-Gi-Oh! 5Ds was just finishing up. They were showing a lot of the Season 2 variants, and that's why I'm definitely glad I still have Morphtronics to this day. I definitely do want to pick up some super rares, though, for the Selfons. I had them originally, got rid of the deck once with the supers, and regretted it ever since. All right, next deck is Batteryman. Now, I played this deck for a good while in Duel Links. There are a couple staple cards missing, but not too many from some of the other decks here, and like I said, some of them were not organized too well, Batteryman being one of them. One, I was messing around with the deck, hoping for an update in the near future for sure, but with them, I also just have thoughts of what cards can go in to update each one of them. This is more of just a pure Batteryman variant that I can play, being able to just summon out a bunch of different Batteryman very easily, using Charger, searches with 9-volt, special summons with Industrial Strength, and I feel that's the funnest way to play the deck. I thought maybe adding an artifact engine to it as well could speed up the playstyle a bit, but I guess you could really say that about a good majority of lower tier Yu-Gi-Oh decks. This one is just probably one of my favorite Thunder decks overall. I am a fan of Watts and Thunder Family as well, but Thunder Family was more of a favorite when Shockmaster was still around, so Batteryman takes that place in my heart for all the different Thunder moves you can do with it. For the next one, actually, we're going to save all of the locals relevant decks for one group up, so when we get to that, I'll show those ones. Let's go with a more recent one that I've been playing on the channel, and that is the Slifer the Sky Dragon deck. I went with the Arcana Knight variant with the new support we got from King's Court. This one definitely was one of my favorites to play on the channel. We went for more of a fun build, only using one extra deck card for each of us. My buddy Anthony played the Obelisk deck. I played the Slifer deck, was able to get Slifer pretty high. We just couldn't get over the Guardian Slime that was out on the field, and with it, this variant is just a method to summon out Slifer quite easily using the Knight cards in the deck, whether it be the new Imperial Bower, the Joker's Knight that can set up all your different original ones on the field to tribute out Slifer the Sky Dragon, and just having additional draw power in the deck can help to get Slifer's attack points up during your opponent's own turn, at risk of you not being able to draw anymore. But the King's Court support definitely did help overall for what it was meant to do, and using some of the newer cards we got from the structure deck as well, which just give you more and more draws plus destruction of your opponent's cards. And since we spoke of Slifer, I still kept the Obelisk deck together as well. Normally, if I am going to do some games on the channel, I do take the deck apart, but I kept Slifer and Obelisk together just because I really had fun playing the deck, so I would definitely like to play them again, maybe even, have Winged Dragon Ra be for some of the matchups. Winged Dragon Ra definitely did get some more of the different support for all the different decks, but Slifer and Obelisk just seemed like a better matchup. The Kaiba versus Yugi Battle City Finals is one of my favorite. This was was the one extra deck card we used for the Obelisk deck, and I always go re-watching that actual duel just to see the back and forth. I know there were a lot of illegal moves in that duel, but just being able to see all the different play styles when they had their god cards on the field, when they were just using Dark Magician and Obelisk, there were a lot of change-ups. Even in the beginning, the slow build-up to who would get their god card out first made me want to rebuild and, made me re-feel those feelings of watching those games when I was playing the actual Slifer versus Obelisk games. I also have Madolches. I've always been a fan of Madolches. This isn't actually my original Madolche deck, but I do have and like to keep some of the original pieces from it, including the Ultimate Tiramisus, and just the playstyle overall. I really wish the deck was more relevant. It's, it comes around again in the format. You see a couple decks play it. I definitely do want to try it. I just don't know the direction to take for it to be a little more competitive compared to all the different decks we currently have at locals, including Sword Souls, Tennies, you name it. All of them are definitely, I would say, a lot faster than Madolche, but once this deck takes off and you get your Field Swarm, you definitely have a lot of scary cards to use against your opponent. Even just with some of the extra deck cards, those cards are very, very useful to use against your opponent in plenty of setup to shuffle back all their different cards. One of the other decks that I recently built from the Ancient Guardians set is the Solfachord deck. This is a pendulum, and I'm a very, very big fan of pendulums, so I had to build this one. I was actually hoping to build all of the decks from the Ancient Guardians. I have the Ursartix built technically in a book at the moment with all the support ready to do a deck profile update, but Solfachords are the ones I actually kept together just because like I said, I'm always a pendulum fan. I'm always mixing back and forth cards from the Pendulum Magician deck that I have in the Solfachords, mixing up different things that I can use, basically the Jackal King setup, the Supreme Kings, just to help with the new Link monster we got back during the Dawn of Majesty set, which is the Grand Solfachord Musetia. Having pendulum options for your Link monsters makes it feel more like an Electromite setup, but still being able to get out some of the biggest plays. I think the one thing I had when I first started playtesting this was just keeping track of the different scales, because this deck definitely does focus more on if you have even or odd scales for the different spell lineup. But this one was actually one that I wasn't able to build too easily with the Ancient Guardian set. I didn't pull anything for the ultra rares. I pulled all the Ursartic and Ogdoadic cards from the set and no ultra rare Solfachord. So I had to trade for basically all the ultras you see in the deck here. But it was definitely worth it. I really do like this deck and hope we get some more support for it in the future. Another one. Here's an old one, but one I still love, and that is Gem Knights. Now, Morphtronics and Gem Knights are probably some of the decks I know a good amount of all the different combos for the deck. Morphtronics, Gem Knights got hit, thanks to Brilliant Fusion being hit. I believe Gem Knight Master Diamond is also still hit. But with their Link monster and then just their overall special summon power, you can get some pretty strong plays out on the board using this deck. I've used it in a couple duels on the channel, hoping to do a few more. Maybe some dual terminal matchups as well. This deck just really does take off when you have those fusion plays, and Lapis Lazuli being that burn damage monsters to be able to hit your opponent even before they've had their own turn, comboed with Gem Knight Master Diamond, Lady Brilliant Diamond to bring out other fusion monsters, you name it. And then all the different plays and so many different fusion monsters in this deck just make me want to try more and more different combos. That's why I'm always trying out different fusions. I currently have Topaz and Citrine. I do want to try some more of the Aqua monsters. I tend to avoid those cards since they're more of a defensive playstyle, but they can always go well with some of their other monsters in the deck, including, I believe it's Gem Knight Sapphire as one of those fusion options. And moving right along, we also have Lavals. Now, Lavals were taken apart for the longest time. I believe I did have them in the latest deck collection update, but we did get new support for the deck from Ghost from the Past and also from the Lightning Overdrive booster set. So getting new Laval support is always a plus for me, and I like that we've taken more of a step away from the Shooting Quasar setup. You can still summon it out in the deck, but you don't really have to focus on that as much. You can go for more of the different pyro plays, and one of the biggest things when I originally made this deck was that Rekindling was at 3 when I played this deck at locals to begin with, but then it sadly went to 1. I tried going with Soul Charge, but that wasn't enough either, so I had to put the deck aside for the time being since I really couldn't do much to it, because relying on just Monster Reborn and then Soul Charge and 1 Rekindling wasn't really enough for the deck. And when Soul Charge got hit and we only had the 1 Rekindling, but slowly Rekindling went back to 3 me, so I was able to enjoy my full playstyle of using Molten Conduction Field with my Rekindling to summon back a bunch of different Pyro monsters on the field for me to use. Very, very happy with the results of this deck, and one I hope to continue to update on the channel. Maybe we'll get some new support. It seems to be one of those dual terminal decks they definitely don't like to avoid. We've gotten Gusto support recently, the Laval support, and because of it, I'm hoping maybe we'll get some Gishki support also. Speaking of Gishkis and one of the original decks, this one has definitely been in all of my different collection videos. Forgot the word for collection for a second there. I'm testing out, I always love testing out Gishkis. Currently you see a couple Drytrons in the deck. I'm mixing them around with those cards. It helps the deck for sure, but I'm missing that Aqua Purity that the deck had. I may mix in some more of the new Sea Serpent support instead of the Drytron engine, just to see where the direction of the deck can go from there. I feel you can do more with the deck using those cards, but like I said, the Drytron engine is just here to try and speed things up. It does speed up the deck, but it can restrict it with some of your other plays. I do miss the Gishki Beast setup for getting out some of your other ritual monsters, and being able to have our Gust Kraken at 3 is also a different play style that I always love looking into. And let's see. We went with Laval's, Gishkis. Let's move on now to Gustos. I'm a big fan of the Yu-Gi-Oh! Dual Terminal storyline. I was playing Evil Swarms before the deck was even technically considered legal. That was just the locals we played at. It was very, very fun to do so, and they really didn't care because they would just be able to play test as well against the new decks coming up. But I'm talking about Gustos right now, not Evil Swarms. I would play this deck sometimes too, and I really did like when we got the Kaiju support. This deck did get new support in the Dawn of Majesty set, and the combo you can do with Freeze and Lamplampilica just really helps to reignite my love for the deck altogether. I'm hoping to do some more plays. I don't think I've actually filmed any games for this deck on the channel yet, so that'd definitely be a recommendation if you'd like to see it. Maybe against some other dual terminal decks. I know we said the same with Lavals, so maybe a matchup between Gustos and Lavals will definitely be one to consider. All right, we'll go ahead and go on next to the different decks that I use at my locals. I switch back and forth between I think it was about 4 different decks currently that I play at locals, and I'm still always changing between those decks. I was originally, we'll go with the one I'm really not playing as much currently, just because it got hit recently on the ban list, and that is Prank Kids. We have the one Meow Meow Mew for the deck, and the deck is still good. You can get some plays off, but just having one Meow Meow Mew definitely does hurt your entire play style setup. So it makes it so you have to really hope that that first Meow Meow Mew doesn't get interrupted by your opponent. We have all the other Link monsters to rely on, but this one hit on the ban list definitely did take it away. I've always liked the Prank Kids, but when it originally came out, we didn't have the Meow Meow Mew to use, so we had to resort to having our opponent basically either let us get out our monsters for it, have the instant fusion of the polymerization to get out our fusion monsters, which would then benefit all the different summons from our Prank Kids. Maybe we'll even see a different attribute Prank Kid monster. Maybe just one additional attribute to the main deck will be enough for us to have continuous special summon onto the field, where one Meow Meow will be all right, and then we'll see where the deck can go from there. All right, next deck that I use, and this one is one I still enjoy using a lot at locals. It's definitely an underdog deck. I've always been a fan of the Salamangreat deck. Ever since the Soul Burner structure deck came out, as you can see, this is one that's not organized at all. It's one I've used recently. It's one I've taken side deck from. You can see my entire side deck is missing here because I was using it in one of the other decks recently at locals as well. And with it, we have more of the setup there and plenty of extra deck, like I said, right here to use. This deck is definitely one I am happy to continue to be playing on the channel, and also if I were to do some more meta relevant updates, I would definitely like to film this game against maybe some other current meta decks. I'm slowly working on Sword Souls, and I do have the other ones which I'll mention in a bit. We could try some of those matchups if you'd like to see, but Salamangreats, even before the Soul Burner structure deck came out, I loved using Salamangreats, and that was the definite fun part of locals when I had the full power of my Mirage Stalio. It's here somewhere, and just all the other Link monsters that you can go into, with the majority still being the fact that you go into your different Salamangreats, makes it a great build-up deck to rely on all your different Cyberse plays. And next I have Traptrix. This one is when I'm more in a, I would say, control type of playstyle, because you really don't have to do much for your setup with this. You rely on Traptrix Sarah for a good majority of the plays, rank 4 plays as well, and the majority of your deck being trap cards. I think I just have the one spell being the double or nothing. I built this and, sold it at one port and took it apart again. So I think this is my third variation of Traptrix. Getting the Sarahs were the most definite difficult part of the deck altogether. The other stuff was pretty easy, but when we got the new support in Lightning Overdrive, I had to update the deck for sure. Once again, with all of the new support to use. This one is one, like I said, just if I'm in the mood to play something that doesn't have too many combos to rely on, it's basically just that back row setup if you have the proper back row to use, with that one Traptrix monster that you can then go into your Link monster to summon out and rely on the activation of your different trap cards to gain additional plays and searches using your Traptrix Sarah. It definitely is one that I've done pretty well with at locals. It all depends on the matchups, but one I'll continue to use right next to Salamangreats, and hopefully I may even give Prank Kids another try. But one of the ones I'm having the most fun with at locals at the moment is Adamancipators. This Synchro Rock deck, I can only imagine how scary this deck would be if we had, Block Dragon still. And this is one I mixed the side deck with back and forth with Salamangreats, Traptrix, all of them. So those are some of the empty sleeves you see here, just some empty missing side deck that I use for the deck. I always am going back and forth between them. I built this one with the latest Mega Tin that came out. It was just great for the easy access to Adamancipator Researcher. I do want to, I wanted to test the deck out to see if I'd like it. I definitely do enjoy it a lot, so I want to update all of these to Secret Rare eventually. I have the Kawaki Marus, the Prank Kids, all the different engines work very, very well together. It's a pretty straightforward play style as well, and the different extract monsters you can make. The one I do need for the deck is Baron de Fleur. I still need to pull one of those cards. Going to make it my mission to pull that card instead of having to buy or trade for it. And once I do, I definitely can't wait to test this deck out with that level 10 Synchro. All right, we still have a good number of different decks here. The one I couldn't find for the video, and I'm pretty upset about it because I know it's here somewhere. It was evading me for the entire video, and that is Destiny Heroes. They are sitting around my room somewhere. It is one of the more recent videos I had on the channel with the deck profile update, so there really wasn't much of a change with the deck at all since then. I think, what was that? Sleeve residue there for sure. And I also wanted to show it, but like I said before, it was on the channel recently. So if you want to see it, definitely check out that deck profile update. On to the next deck, Pendulum Magicians. These are ones that I always enjoy playing as well. This deck is just one that I used at locals for a good while. I've actually turned it into the Zark variant. It was the one I had the most recent deck update on the channel for. So the one that you see currently is the build meant to utilize, and he's here somewhere, our Supreme King Zark, our main go-to boss monster in the deck. So once you summon out this card, it's basically game over for your opponent. I have had a DDD matchup on the channel with this deck also. So with it, I'm hoping to at least have some other Arc 5 matchups using this deck in the future as well. We'll see what matchups I can use to go up against this deck. I might try some of the other matchups that Yugioh maybe did in the final rounds of the Arc 5 anime. I know he went up against Perform Mages. There's really not much I could do for a Perform Mage deck, but he did go up against Super Heavy Samurais and Raidraptors, which I had that matchup on the channel. I might change it around to a Performapal build as well, because that was more of the deck that we saw. We did see Yugioh get out the different dragons he summoned in the anime, Starving Venom, Clearwing, and Dark Rebellion Xyz Dragon, so those might be the main cards to focus on for those plays, but still would like to see just what I can mix up for those games. And next we'll go over my GOAT format deck. It's definitely coming down to me if I played a match on the channel, because that's one of the best ways you can see the decks that I show in this video at full power as well. The GOAT format deck I built was the Elemental Hero version, I'm guessing, because I was told when I was playing into the GOAT format, the rules were you could play up to cards in Ancient or Lost Millennium, and those were just the introduction of some of the hero cards. I believe we had Avion, Burstinatrix, Clayman and Sparkman, along with Hero Signal. Those were literally the only cards, so mixing around all those different cards, and the only fusion monsters we had for them, which were Thunder Giant and Flame Wingman, so I had plenty of copies of those to use during those games. Still kept the deck together. It's really not like I need any of the cards in this deck for any other builds at the moment, since a good majority of these cards are banned, or like I said, just not being used currently, because I have them in other decks to use. And next deck, we have Cyberse. This is another one I definitely do enjoy updating a lot. The current format build is the Code Talker version of the deck. This one just uses the Cynet Codec to summon out some of the different Code Talker monsters. Access Code Talker is definitely one of the best ones in the deck to summon out, and just the different monster variety you can use, Cynet Mining especially, for that setup makes this a true powerhouse of a deck, and I'm hoping we're still missing some support for it that the OCG has that we do not. And the big play, whether you get Access Code Talker out or your Firewall Dragon Dark Fluid, relies on those cards, and then just the many different Cyberse monsters that you can summon out using this deck as well, and your initial card spell setup, whether it be Cynet Codec or Cynet Optimization, and all these different cards are searchable. I've updated the deck since Code of the Duelist. That was the first time I updated this deck to the fullest, so I'm going to keep on updating it with every update we get. Same with Perform Pals. If we ever get a big amount of support for Perform Pals, I always like to do a deck update on the channel, and the same applies for Cyberse. We did get some support in the latest pack, but it wasn't really enough, I would say, to justify an update to the Cyberse deck, since it was more of just generic support that revolved around Cyberse cards, and not really support that actually, was meant to make the deck any better than it already is. And next, going back to Arc 5, it is Phantom Knights. This was actually a more recently updated deck with the support we got from Phantom Rage, and it's been seeing some meta relevance. I've actually considered, re-updating the deck even more with side deck and full extra deck to play for locals using the Tour Guide and Burning Abyss lineup, and all the different broke level 3 monsters we have for the deck. I can definitely see playing it. It's one of my more graveyard variant decks that I like to play, so if I were to take the deck to locals, this would definitely be one I'd like to see more of, and I'd try to go for some of those new play styles we got, including the rank up plays you can do with the spell card being the Phantom Knights rank up Magic Force to get up to some pretty high rank monsters, whether they be the different Dark Requiem variations, or even some higher, stronger monsters that I can run in the deck. I believe I can also run Zeus, the rank 10 monster, so that's something to always consider as well. And next we have, there's definitely a lot of Arc 5 decks I've noticed. I'm a big fan of the Arc 5 series. I really don't mind it at all. It's a great series. I love building decks from them. There's so much variation, whether it be fusions, Xyz, Synchro, you name it. And with Fluffals, they were actually called for animals in the beginning. So I remember when I first made the Fluffal deck and the name Fluffal stood out for the name of the deck, since everyone was expecting for animals. And then we had Fluffals and Fright Furs. So this deck, even in the beginning when I only had the Fright Fur Bear and the Fright Fur Wolf is the only 2 fusion monsters, and some pretty generic support. I think we only had Bear, Lion, Owl, and Cat for the deck, along with just Edge Imp Sabers. So that was definitely a lot to go off of, and the fact that we've gotten a Lost Art version of Edge Imp Sabers, it's here somewhere, to use in the deck also, makes it that much more awesome. I hope we get a lot more different Lost Art cards to use for many of the different decks in the current game. I'm hoping to have Harpies in the next edition because of all the different My Valentine cards. Harpies were ones that definitely have a lot of cards that we're getting for Lost Art, so being able to have a fully uncensored Harpy deck to play is the next goal I want. I don't want to have any of the changed arts for the TCG. I want to have the original OCG arts in my Harpy deck to use. And next is we're going to the GX lineup. I used to have a good number of different hero decks. Destiny Heroes are currently the only one I have, but that's also because I'm always mixing around and updating the hero decks. But Crystal Beasts have always stayed consistent, and I've actually had a couple different versions of the Crystal Beast deck. This is just one I've held on to for a good while. We've had new support since the Ancient Millennium set, and being able to have a max rarity Crystal Beast deck, I believe most of the cards are max rarity. There might be 1 or 2 cards here or there that I still need to get secret rare versions, and maybe we'll get a foil version of Crystal Conclave eventually in the future as well. That would definitely be sweet to see. Even if it's just an OTS super, I can see them doing something like that where they give us a super rare for this deck. All right, we've got a couple more, I think 7 in total. Next one, Cyberdarks. This one was a more recent one that I kept together just because the Cyberdark deck definitely does have a pretty strong upside down lineup. This Mystical Sand is not meant to be in this deck. This is meant to be in the Adamancipator deck over here. Did my best, like I said, to organize a good majority of them, but with the latest support we got from the structure deck, this deck just got even stronger, and hoping to continue to play it as well. I had the mirror match on the channel a while back, but I was always a fan, and I do want to get the original versions. I have one of each of the original Cyberdark monsters. Maybe we'll see some foil copies of Cannon and Claw in the upcoming OTS in February, because they were pretty recent cards in the structure deck remade, and we got Ice Barrier cards of all things in some of the OTS packs, so that would definitely be one I can see us getting more support for. All right, next, going back to Arc 5 again, we have Raidraptors. I'm going to continue this trend for 2 more decks, and I believe that's all from Arc 5 that I have. Raidraptors were another one along with Phantom Knights that were updated during the Phantom Rage update. So with that, the new rank up spell, we got the new Raidraptor monsters from Rise of the Duelists before Phantom Rage as well. So using those cards with the new support for the deck makes it just so we can have more consistent plays. Tribute Lanius. These are actually the original ones that I used for the deck. I didn't really ever want to part with those cards, but the new ones from Phantom Rage definitely did help with the playstyle that you were set up to do with this deck, which is to rank up into your bigger Xyz monsters, whether they be Satellite Falcon, or even your, or my favorite at least, Ultimate Falcon, which is basically your opponent is unable to get over this card unless they can at least attack over it, since it's unaffected by a good majority of your opponent's cards, and you just need 2 cards to summon it out. That was always my favorite play to do. When you just had the Lastrix and your Skip Force, you could just summon out the Lastrix, tribute it to summon out your Satellite Falcon, then use Skip Force to get a completely summoned out Ultimate Falcon with material on the field. All right, next deck, we have Fire Fists. Now, this was one that when the deck originally came out, I was super excited to play. Fire Fist Spirit, and I was a huge fan of Synchro Monsters. I think I had this deck for only a couple weeks before they hit the play with Spirit. It was such a fun play to do with the Horse Prince setup, and once they hit Spirit to 1, that was, downhill from there. We really couldn't do the plays as much. People tried to make it so you could do other Synchro plays in the deck, but just getting out Horse Prince was that much more difficult. There's really not much of this deck at the moment that is off of the ban list, but it does show I have to update this deck, and I probably will for the channel as well, because I still have 3 Tenki in here, which it should just be the 1 copy to use. But once I do get around to updating this deck, I will make an updated video as well, because I always love updating Fire Fist. We had new support from the Fist of the Gadget set, and the Panda and Elephant definitely do help for the initial playstyle, and the different Link monsters we got for it as well. All right, I know I'd finish up Arc 5. I got distracted by Fire Fists, but who hasn't? So Superheavy Samurais are my last Yu-Gi-Oh! Arc 5 deck. They've had new support released in foil version from the Megaton. I'm very surprised we got Wagon, Musashi, and Scarecrow as foil versions, but being able to fully foil out a good majority of my Superheavy Samurai deck is always great, and its playstyle just has such a defensive-offensive style, if that makes sense. Being able to summon out Big Benkei, and then all the other different bigger Synchro monsters you can summon out, whether you're destroying your opponent's back row, taking your opponent's cards, you name it. You have all these different Synchro options, and it's always been a fun deck for me to use right next to Perform Pal, even when it originally came out. There wasn't really much of a deck profile I could do initially, but I had to slowly wait from all the different Arc 5 series to gain the more support I could use for the Superheavy Samurai deck. All right, what are we down to? I think we have 3 decks left. Another recent update from Dawn of Majesty are the Chronomalies. I got the newest Xyz monsters for this deck. It was one of the decks I was the most excited to update with the set. I've always liked the support we got for Chronomalies, the play style. I held on to my Nebber discs for the longest time from World Superstars. I think that's the one card I actually have never traded away. I always had my Nebber discs for the deck. I always like going for the more pure variant of the deck also. I feel it to be more of the fun versions to use, and I hope to continue to use it. I don't make too many decks from Yu-Gi-Oh! Zexal, but this is one I definitely do like playing. I may end up even building gimmick puppets and holding on to that. It's one I've given away and traded away plenty of times with the support I've gotten, but one I would like to hold on to eventually. All right, we got 2 decks left. Another one, Darklords. From Rise of the Duelist, I was happy with the fusion monster we got for this deck, and overall, the initial playstyle of the Darklords, which is just to summon out all these different big boss monsters and make use of recycling your different spells and traps back into the deck by paying life points for them. This is a different cult deck to build for sure with Yugioh when it first came out, but these are reprinted versions, and that's when I finally went around to actually building this deck. But happy I did. It's still one of the ones I'm surprised I still have. I just don't have the heart to part with it. And the last deck, one of the more recent ones, one that I didn't misplace, sadly, like Destiny Heroes, and that are Rockets. I'm not a fan of Dragon Link as much. I wanted to go for a pure Dragon update, and this is the one I decided to go with the different forms. The different Link monsters are in some other decks at the moment as well. The Boral Sword, and I believe Boral Guard is still in here. Yep, there it is. I always like to keep the 3 together whenever I do a deck profile update. Boral Sword especially, but this is one that I still find very, very fun to use, and like I said, I had a recent update on it on the channel, thanks to the Burst of Destiny set also. But that is the end of the video. Like I said, I think actually, let me check one spot real quick. If it is where I think it is. Nope, sadly, it is not. I don't know where I placed that deck, but hopefully I will be able to find my Destiny Heroes at one point. One more place, and let's see. Nope, doesn't look like. Oh, wait. And look at that. All it took was one little glance and I found it. This was actually one I used at locals the most recently. I wanted to play pure Destiny Heroes. I didn't really want to go for a hero lineup, but I used the deck from my latest update. I only changed the impermanences, and I think I did run the Ash Blossoms in my latest update. But with that, I am running the best card in the deck, and that is Destroyer Phoenix Enforcer. This card won me most of my games. It's so busted of a card, but really do love it in the deck. I'm glad I was able to find it also. I didn't want to lose this card especially. But now that I'm out of breath after checking my room very shortly like that, I hope you all enjoyed the deck collection update. Like I said, it was later than some of the other ones that I've uploaded on the channel. I always like to go for, I think, June on the updates. So I won't be late for the 9th deck collection update for sure, so look forward to it. And as always, please don't forget to leave a like and subscribe. And Kiratwig, I'm out of breath. It shows when the weather gets colder, I have to work out more. But once again, as always, please don't forget to leave a like and subscribe. And Kiratwig out.